Okay, so ZonGuru works in all of these marketplaces, so you'll be able to get the data you need for any of these. Today, we're going to focus on the US, Australia, India, and the UK. That bigger. Okay, so metrics. Everyone always asks. That's one of the questions I think we get a lot. I don't know about you, Kimberly, but I see it a lot is, what are the numbers that I need to be looking for when I'm making a decision on a product?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and they're different for each marketplace. So in the US, we're looking for sales price over $25, in search volume over 2,000, and you want your ratings less than 800 to be able to get in there and have some competition, be able to compete against who's already there. And then you're looking for revenue of around $10,000 on average each month and a niche score over 55%. Now, that said, there are you have to look at each part of the niche score because every seller is different and really know exactly which parts you feel like you can compete against. But the big things that you need to be aware of in the US is that branding matters. You're going to have higher PPC costs, and the competition is often tougher. People have been in this marketplace a lot longer and they're established. So you'll need to perform and present everything at the highest level that you can. And that said, you're going to have probably a larger capital investment to stay in stock because your sales volume is going to be higher, and you're going to need to get, and it's going to, even now with everything with the shipping, getting things to America is more expensive as well. So there's going to be a little bit larger capital investment. But the flip side of that is your income potential is a lot higher.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Higher risk, higher reward. And the thing that sticks out to me there, and something I see a lot of people trip up on, is the sale price. They might go too low. And the reason why you want enough room in your sale price is, especially in the United States, PPC, your advertising, is going to be a component. It's a necessary evil. You will need to do some advertising, especially in the beginning, to be seen. So if you're paying $1 per click, so if you're paying $1 for someone to find you and you're only selling your product for $6 or $7, already you've cut a huge piece of your margin out. So you want to make sure that your price point's high enough that not only do you have a healthy profit margin, but there's enough room in there if you do want to spend on advertising. So just some food for thought.
Yeah, I just set up my PPC campaign for my new product. And, when I launch, my bid's about 150% of the recommended suggested bid. And some of my bids were over $2 because of that. Yeah, it was like insane.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some examples, put things in perspective just a little bit. So, So this is looking at the United States going through Niche Finder. So I love this tool. This is a place to start when you don't know what you want to do. And so you can put in the filters and the parameters that match up to where you want your sales prices to be, where you want your reviews to be, and your revenue, and so much more, and get back results. And you can dial it into particular niches, or you can just leave it wide open and see what happens. So this one came up, and I thought this one was really unique. The niche score is really great at 73%. And just get that up on my other screen so I can read it. Yes, so the average sales are $697, so that's good. You've got a really good search volume over 15,000, and your price is right there at the $25 mark. Your ratings aren't too bad. The thing that jumps out at me on this is the numbers all look good, but there's not a lot of differentiation going on the page. So there would definitely be ways to make those different.
It's hard to actually see what the product is on this screen. Can you? It's a candle type jar. What's the actual product?
Yeah, sorry. So it's a candle jars for making candles. So candle making kits are quite popular right now. And so these are the jars you put the wax in when you make the candles. And they're very plain. Most of them are just, clear glass or brown glass. And there's a few metal ones. And I only see one there that's, two that have done something a little different with some patterns on the metal. So I thought that was really good. So this one and that one. So just only two out of all of
Mm.
them have done something different. Everyone else is very, very plain. And that was the way
Yeah.
page one looked as well.
Yeah, I like this one too because there's so many options with bundling and the quantity, sizes. You know,
Yes.
you could have a pack where it's like your large, medium, and small. They're all in the same. They're endless possibilities.
Absolutely. And I think the price to source these, especially if you go with the metal, would probably be quite reasonable. And then you're also going to have, it's also then going to be lightweight and can fit into a small package. So you're not going to get into that oversized category either.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So I went to page one and ran the that. And so just to back up Niche Finder, after I do Niche Finder, then I always go to Amazon and I'll use the Chrome extension and it, you know, it all syncs up and, you know, the score's good. But looking at the sellers on the page, you know, there's a lot of money being made and there's not a huge number of ratings. And what I like to look at is, are the sellers on page one that don't have a lot of ratings, are they still getting sales?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Ram's just asked a question. He's seen a different niche rating score. Ram, I'd just love to know if you are based in the US or overseas. If you're overseas, have you got that US postal address in there? Otherwise, Amazon's going to show you only products that can ship to you, and that can dramatically change your score. There'll always be a slight variation in the score between Niche Rater and the Chrome extension because the Chrome extension is reporting on what's happening right now. Yeah, so you're in AU. So just make sure you've got that postcode right and that exact search phrase because that can affect it as well. And you've pointed out that there is high demand, very high demand actually. The higher the score on any of the 4 rainbow categories, the more appealing it is to a seller. So very high demand. People are searching using that term, but the revenue is on the lower side. So again, that's where it comes into play where everybody is looking for slightly different things. So maybe you are after that product that people are actively searching for. You want to know it's in demand. You're willing to have a lower profit margin, but you're going to make that profit on scale. So all things to consider. And I always like to stress there is no such thing as 100% perfect niche. If you're looking for that, and you find it, let me know. I'd love to know. But there's always going to be that give and take and finding what's right for you. So Kimberly, back to you.
Cool. Yeah. So, you know, again, a lot of people like to look at a product like this and something that appeals to me. I mean, it's not a ridiculously large monthly revenue, but that's a healthy monthly revenue. And the launch budget is achievable, you know, 14,000. And that's based on what it would take to stay in stock based on the current sales velocity and to stay in stock on page one, because that's where we all want to end up is on page one. So, you know, you could get, you know, 3 or 4 products that are doing this kind of revenue. And that's, you know, you're making a really substantial amount with your Amazon business when you've got a suite of products that can do this kind of number.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know anyone that wouldn't want that in their back pocket each month.
Oh, absolutely. All right, let's see if we can go forward. Yeah, so this is some more of the ones on page one. So again, Niche Finder showed a certain selection, but these are the ones that I was actually looking at there. And you can see there's, you know, maybe some color variations, but there's not a lot. I only see the one again here with the 10s that have the different patterns on them. And yeah, huge room to come in and differentiate. And again, a bundle. If you're doing candle making kits, you should be selling these too. So
yeah, what stands out to me there is even the hero shots. A lot of the hero shots look very similar in terms of they've just laid out how many they're doing, whereas the one that stands out to me is second from the bottom. What are we going to the orange?
this one?
Yeah, where they've really zoomed in on one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to take up as much of that space. You want your product to be there, and yeah, I mean these you know, you can't really see much about it. They're so little. Oops, my mouse is going to do me in. Okay, so just moving on. So that is an example of a product that I think the data initially looks good, and I would start looking at sourcing this one if this was something that I wanted to add. But the data, the numbers, you have to look beyond the numbers. So my email alerts aren't coming through, are they?
Yeah, they are, but that's
Okay.
okay.
Sorry. Okay. So a not so good example. So this is a dog clicker, and you can see that the niche score is still really good, 60%, but everything is the same. And there's not really a way to differentiate this. I mean, you've got a good search volume, you've got great sales, the price is good, and it looks like the average listings are not that great either. So, but what can you do to make this stand out? How can you make this different? You know, if you have an idea, I would love to know, because I can't see any way to make this different. So even though the numbers are good, the product itself, I think, would be really difficult to sell.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see on that screen, but can you see what the average ratings are?
The ratings are over 7,000, so
Yeah.
that's why, yeah, that one's kind of
Instant red flag for me.
yeah, because these people have been doing this for a long time. This was something and that they got going early on in Amazon, I would say.
Yeah, and that's, which is perfect when you have a product that's very difficult to differentiate. It really is whoever got in early holds the biggest piece of the pie there. So that proves it.
But when I went and did it live, that was the niche finder, like we said, is historical. So some sellers may have dropped off for some reason, maybe ran out of stock, or who knows. But you know, here it shows still over 2,000. So that's still kind of high, even though the whole niche score is 70%. The demand is high, the sales volume is high, the price is pretty good, the launch budget's not too bad, but again, the ratings are quite high.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a product that it's very, I guess, utilitarian. People aren't going to buy it based on aesthetics. You could change the color, but it's really not going to influence people dramatically. It doesn't solve a pain point that isn't already being solved. Totally agree with.
Yeah, there's not really much room for innovation here, and unless someone had something really amazing that they came up with to innovate it, then they might be able to crack in it, but that would be really difficult to do, I think. And again, it's a technological tool, so it's going to have some parts in it that are going to be really susceptible to breaking down and could end up with some bad ratings.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the extra hurdles you'll have to go through if you have batteries or anything like that. And they're just extra hurdles that you don't need to have.
Yeah, not when you're getting started, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the UK. So the UK and the US are very, very similar. The prices and the metrics are quite similar, even though these are obviously in pounds. You know, sale price around £20, still a good search volume, and ratings, you want to keep it maybe a little bit lower, 500, because the UK, I think, is a pretty competitive market. And again, your branding is going to matter. Your PPC costs are going to be higher. So again, you're going to want to try and go for that higher price points. So again, this looks a lot like the US. And again, you're not going to have that language barrier. So that kind of works. Although being an American expat living in Australia, I can tell you, even though we all speak English, Australian is its own language. And so I imagine that in the UK, it's not much different. There's going to be certain terms that are going to be unique to the marketplace that you'll need to be aware of. So looking here, I saw this one and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. You wouldn't think it's a really exciting product. So it's plastic storage drawers in a tower. So 69% on the niche score. So the search volume is good, over 2,000. Your price is around £38. So that's well and truly above the threshold. And the ratings aren't very high. There's only 320. And you think about it, it's a very utilitarian type of product. People aren't going to probably care enough to put a rating in for something so basic as this. But there's an opportunity here to really stand out, because as you can see, everything looks the same, but there would definitely be a way to differentiate this. You got the one that you can see there, the multicolors, and that's at a premium price. That one's 62 pounds. So there's definitely some room here for some innovation that wouldn't end up being ridiculously expensive to do.
No, not at all. The first place my mind goes to is adding wheels to make it portable, and even a cute little label holder on the front or something. But it's
brilliant.
Again, just like the candle jars, the size combinations, maybe there's things that go in the drawers. It would be flat packed as well, so it would be quite easy to ship. The materials, the colors, it's endless.
Yeah, and I saw one, and I'm going to show a picture here that I found on page 1 that jumped out at me, and it's this one. So they've made the drawers fabric. They've put nice handles on it. This looks like a piece of furniture, and again, this is going to be flat packed. I imagine that's a metal or wooden frame. And for me, I'm about to redo my office, and looking for storage ideas like that don't look like these just plain white and clear plastic bins. Something like that looks really nice. And so with so many people working at home, that could be something really, a real opportunity there. So there's definitely room to make these improved, either by looks or by function or both.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yep. Now, not so good. So the numbers on this looks really good, 77% for garden screens. And there's probably some ways to differentiate this. Most of them are type of windbreaks, like this one here. I think it's just to prevent wind or for privacy. But you've got pretty high ratings, over 1,300 ratings. Search volume is still pretty good, but again, putting this into Sales Spy immediately shows me that it's incredibly seasonal, and it's just not something that you're going to be able to maintain any kind of income for your business for.
Yeah, that's so important, because if you were searching for this during the peak sales period for it, you'd be thinking, I found a winner. This product is brilliant. It's not breakable. It ticks all the boxes. You launch, and then you launch to crickets because you looked at it during that peak time. It's really important to look at the sales history over the last, you want that 360-degree view of the niche.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why you're combining Niche Finder and then the Chrome extension, and then taking those products that are doing really well and putting them in Sales Spy and really see what's happening over the history is super important. Now, Australia. Everybody seems to want to come to Australia now, which is awesome. So it's so good. And I think it's the more sellers we get in Australia, the stronger it's going to go, and it's just going to exponentially grow because there's more products, more people will shop there. So a little bit different looking at your metrics. And you have to take into consideration that it is an emerging marketplace. So you're going to have lower sales volumes and lower income levels overall. So you'd be still looking for that $25 price point. Your search volume is not going to necessarily be as high because it is an emerging marketplace. So people are still getting used to using Amazon. So looking for something over 800 search every month would be good. Still want your ratings to be low. So under 500 would be ideal. And you're looking more at a revenue around $5,000 a month. So again, this is not going to be something where you're going to get in and you're going to be able to launch a product or two and then retire. But it's definitely something getting in at the beginning, which is so amazing. We all have the place. I mean, we're all looking at Amazon America going, if only I had been doing this 10 years ago.
We were just talking about that with the dog clicker.
Yeah.
This is the perfect example of that. The people who get in with those products now, those macro niches, that people are going to be saying the same thing about those sellers a few years from now.
Absolutely. So that opens it up. You don't have to dial it in as tightly as you do for America or the UK. So your branding is still going to be important because we do still like a good brand in Australia. but your PPC costs are going to be lower. And your competition is going to be a little bit more sparse, most likely. I was looking at, because my products are in America and I'm going to be bringing them to Australia, because looking at my niche, the products that are being sold in Australia, if you start clicking on them and looking, you can see that they're fulfilled from the United States. So they're US sellers and my product can ship to Australia from the US. But that means your delivery time is longer. And you've also got fulfilled by merchant going on. So I don't really have any FBA people in my niche currently in Australia. So I need to get going quickly because when you hit FBA and you're one of the first few FBA sellers in Australia with your FBA your product in the Australian warehouses, you're going to get ahead of everybody else on that listing page, even without advertising.
Yeah, Amazon favors those listings. And just for anybody who's new, FBA means fulfilled by Amazon. So that's where you're storing your inventory in their warehouse. And when you make a sale, they'll pick it, pack it, and ship it for you.
Yes. And Australia is, I believe it is in New South Wales that they're building, I think, one of their biggest warehouse facilities currently. So they're really investing in the Australian marketplace. So you've got the support of Amazon behind you to come here, definitely.
Yeah. Tom's just asked how you see when something's delivered from Australia versus the US. When you're searching on Amazon, there's a little box to the top left where you can say ships from Australia, ships from US, or I think there's another option there. So what you'll find a lot of buyers do is they'll go in and the first thing they'll tick is ships from Australia, because that instantly gives them a pool of products that have fast shipping times.
Yeah, and if you don't tick that, and what I was doing is I was looking and I would just open up the listing. And when you're looking on a listing page over in the buy box, where it tells you where you click add to cart, it'll often tell you where it's shipping from, or you can just look at your shipping date. So if your shipping date's, longer than 3 or 4 days, then it's most likely coming from overseas. Yeah, and definitely. Some of them actually did say, ships from the US.
Yeah. Another key thing that gives it away is when you see things, instead of being in centimeters or kilograms, you'll see things like pounds, and it's the wrong terminology. It's just a US listing. So, and that's another way that you can cut through the noise on Australia, because obviously if your product listing resonates with the local buyers, they're going to click on yours more often than not. So just another thing to, just had a question come through asking if it's too late to join Amazon FBA, if it's too cluttered. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, heavens no. FBA is yes, that's where you want to be. You don't have the headaches of fulfilling the products yourself. You get that preferential treatment from Amazon. FBA is definitely the preferred method for selling, and I know that there are some people in Australia that are still doing FBM, so fulfilled by merchant. So you've got FBA fulfilled by Amazon, FBM fulfilled by merchant. So that could mean you've got it, your boxes, your products in your shed, and when your orders come through, you're heading down to Australia Post and shipping them off. Or you might have, there are different services that can do that. So I know, like, I used a 3PL in the US when I had issues getting into Amazon at last Christmas, and they will ship, they'll hold it, but it's still fulfilled by merchant. So again, it's not that preferential treatment that I get from Amazon. It doesn't necessarily qualify as a prime listing. So definitely some negatives to FBM, but if that's what works for you, then it could, like I said, every seller is different. What works for you may not work for someone else. So again, in Australia, getting in at that opportunity at the very beginning is just mind-blowing. It's like, yes, I'm in at the beginning and we can just ride this all the way. But you're going to make a little bit less money to start, but you're going to need less money to start. So that is a big advantage. So someone who's wanting to get into to selling on Amazon, get started in Australia, you don't need as much money to get going. Then once you start making sales and getting that income from it, you can roll that back into your business and maybe expand to other marketplaces like the US. So looking at an example of a good Australian product that I think has some room to get into, looking at a beanbag chair. So 61% on the niche score in Niche Finder. So your search volume is 852. So that's over that 800 threshold. The price on this, the average price is $101. So that got me really exciting.
For a beanbag chair, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's some high-end ones in here because most of them you're seeing around $40, $30 range, but still you've got some that have something special to them that's brought that average price up. So your revenue around $2,000, so not huge. The sales aren't going that quickly. It's only 67. So this is something get in at the beginning of this one and make an impact. So looking at the Chrome extension, it was 55%. And what brought that down was the revenue potential. So, looking at, $2,000 monthly revenue potential, but you're looking at average sales of 49. So again, your launch budget's going to be much smaller because you're not going to need that many to get in and get started. So a great way to test the market. But you still got, on this day, it was only 770 search volume. So again, the Chrome extension is looking at exactly what's happening on Amazon Australia at that moment, where the niche finder is looking at historical data.
One thing I just wanted to point out is the average ratings are so low. And I can guarantee most of those listings probably aren't FBA. So if you launched in that category as FBA, even with 0 ratings, you're pretty much going to be on page 1 from day dot, which you can't say about other marketplaces. So yeah, huge opportunity there, really low launch budget. Just had another question come through saying, would you advise to start in a larger market like the US or Australia, the smaller one? What would your advice be for someone just starting out?
I think it would depend. It will vary from person to person. So, if you found a product that has room for you to get into that larger market and compete, if you see that their listings are not good, if you see that they don't have a lot of ratings for sellers, then you've got room that you can outdo them and you can afford to invest in that product and get it there and stay in stock. Because staying at, you'll always run out of stock the first time, guaranteed. I don't think I know a seller yet who hasn't gotten their first product in and not run out of stock. So, but then, and Amazon's okay with that once, but then you got to make sure that you're maintaining it going forward. So if you have that kind of capital potential from your product selling out and then being able to invest enough to keep it going, then absolutely go for the larger market if that's where you think you can succeed. If you don't have that bigger capital, larger amount of capital to invest, then a smaller market might be the way to get your foot in the door and get started and learning. And you learn so much just from making your first product live.
Yeah, 100%. I like that idea too. It's like if you're based in Australia, you have a smaller launch budget and this is a new opportunity for you there. What you will learn from launching that first product is priceless. You can't put a value on that. And say that product makes a modest profit, but it gives you the confidence and the knowledge to then launch in the US, then that's huge. That's, yeah.
Absolutely. And looking at this, I know it's maybe a little bit small for you guys, but right here, you can see merchant, FBA, merchant, FBA, FB. So there's only a couple of sellers, it looks like about on this little slice, about an even percentage of merchant and FBA. So this is definitely, and those FBAs, I'd have to click on the listing. No, that FBA still could be from America. So it would still give you the heads up, the leg up if you're FBA and you're in the Australian warehouses.
Yeah. Tom's just asked a great question. He's said, should you look to the US market as guidance for the AU, India, other marketplaces? Yes, I mean, there's certain conditions there, but when you think about the scale of it, I think I saw Australia is 1/13 the size of the US.
Yep.
which means that in time we should be making 1/13 the sales of what's happening on the US. So you've got to make sure that what you're looking at in the US is relevant to Australia. For example, you're never going to sell bear traps here like you can in America. And there's so many different examples of that, and you've got to check for seasonality. But it is a really good way to see where that demand is, what people go online for. 100% look to the US, even for inspiration. So if you find a great niche in Australia, have a quick look on the US to see how they're doing it. Is there a certain way that they're photographing their images that really jumps off the page? Is there something that they're doing with their packaging, the actual product itself? Because remember, they are competing in a tougher marketplace. If it's working there, learn from that. Learn from what they're doing.
Absolutely. And in America, you have to go into that micro niche, and we just touched on it. But in Australia, you don't have to go that dialed in. You don't have to, just looking at bean bags, bean bag chair, very broad. In America, you might need to do a bean bag chair for gamers, or, bean bag chairs for, pregnant women. I don't even know if that's a thing, but, just, going that dialed in.
I don't think they'd ever get up again.
Yeah, it may not work. So, but yeah, so, beanbag chair for birthing mothers. Who knows?
You might be onto something.
Yeah, hey, I might have something there. But you can see here, these all look the same. I mean, you've got color differentiation, and that's about it. And you've got the one here that has a pattern, and then you've got this one that's kind of looks like it's set up to be like someone sitting for gaming, because it's got the backrest to it. So lots of room to innovate and make something really unique and stand out.
Yeah, even just having a person in the picture draws your eye to it. Just those
100%.
little things can make, like, all the others are just plain. So put someone on the chair.
If you have a product that you can have a person involved with in some way, especially if you can involve the face, I know you have to be really careful on your hero image and make sure that you're within terms of service, but they will allow certain, like this is within terms of service because it shows the product in use. But the psychology, the human is drawn to other humans. So you'll be drawn to the images that have a face in them. Just looking at this one draws me in much more than this one because their face is blocked, and it's just a side view. So, this one, just having her face like that really does make a difference. That's a great point.
Yeah. You'll notice people do that a lot with pets. If you can put a cute puppy or a kitten in a shot,
yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Definitely. So this is an example of something in Australia that I would not think was a good decision for a product. So you've got an amazing niche score. I don't think I've ever seen 81% before. When this jumped up, I was like, oh my gosh. So your search term is exercise and fitness dumbbells. So it is a specific product. It's not, just exercise and fitness equipment. It's specifically dumbbells. And you've got a good search volume and a good number of sales. And your average rating is only 4.3, and your listing strength is 4.0. So there's definitely some room to get in here and be better than the competition. But this product is fraught with all kinds of red flags. Just the fact that it's heavy, it's going to be very, very difficult to ship this, and your packaging is going to have to be really on point to make sure that they don't fall through the packaging.
Yeah, I agree. And it's heavy, which means that it's going to cost you more to ship it, and that's going to eat into your margins.
Yes. And again, there's not a lot of way to, even though everything looks good, I mean, it's good search volumes, good sales. The price is great, $177. Who would not want to have a product selling for $177? And your monthly revenue for Australia, 14,000. That's fantastic. But how can you really, outside of, again, just a color differentiation, is not necessarily enough. And where the bean bags, that was all that was being done. There's definitely room to improve those with different materials, different textures, different patterns.
Yeah, the size, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't change the size on these. They're going to be the weights that they're going to be. And making them a color is really about the only thing you can do. So again, and just the weight, the expense to ship these from Amazon would be really expensive.
Yeah.
So this one would scare me very much.
Just had a question come through whether FBA or FBM provides a higher rating. Just to clarify, it's not so much, it's more the ranking. So Amazon will give preferential treatment to FBA sellers, meaning they're more likely to rank them at the top of the page. So it's definitely preferred.
Definitely. All right. And our newest marketplace, India. So all of these figures are in, I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. It's rupee.
You're asking the wrong. I always,
okay.
my pronunciation is shocking.
Yeah. So apologies if I've said that wrong. So you're because this is a different currency, the numbers are going to look a little bit large, but you just have to take in consideration what the currency conversion is and put this into your thoughts for US dollars, which is probably what you'd be buying. Well, actually, if you're selling in India, the potential to source from India would be fantastic.
Yeah,
so your
definitely.
prices, your costs may end up being in the same currency. So we're looking for a sales price over 500 and a search volume over 3,000 and ratings again under 1,000 and your average monthly revenue over 150,000. Your volumes are going to be pretty high in this. This is a marketplace that loves to shop online.
Yeah. You're really making your profit in the numbers in terms of the scale, how much you're selling, rather than the profit you're making off each product. And you'll notice when you convert that sale price, it actually comes in a lot lower than what you see in other marketplaces, simply because of what you mentioned, being able to source and sell within the same region. So you're cutting out the shipping. You've cut so much cost off that. And India is a fantastic place to source products. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
Very, very big opportunity. But it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to feel different to sellers that have been selling in the US or the Australian marketplace, because here it is absolutely functionality is the most important thing. They do not care about a brand experience. So they want something that is going to function at the best level. So your differentiation is going to need to be functional. They're very focused on the utility of a product and the price point. Like Kimberly said, they want to get that best deal, and being on Amazon in India and sourcing from India, you can really compete on price. So again, they don't really care about a branding experience, but there are a lot of sellers on Amazon India. It is a very, very big competitive market. But it does open up some niches that normally wouldn't be something you would look at, like fashion. There's a lot of fashion products in India that you could win with. There are some special requirements to sell on Amazon India. You do need to have an Indian company, but it's not a hurdle that can't be overcome. Similar to how a lot of Australian sellers set up an LLC in the United States, which is a limited liability corporation. So there are ways to do that. Because your scale and your volume of sales is so much higher, you're going to need a little bit higher capital investment. But again, the flip side of that is your income potential is much higher, especially when you've got better margins because you're sourcing in the same country.
Yeah. And if you're sourcing in the same country, you've got the option, you don't have that huge wait and lag time between ordering and it reaching Amazon as well. So that can help with your capital investment because you can do smaller batches. So it's not uncommon in India to have minimum order quantities of 100 units. That's almost unheard of for other marketplaces. And that, Danny, absolutely, when you first see those figures, you think that is ridiculously low. But because of the sourcing opportunities in India, it does make it doable. And then you make your profit on the scale and the size. So
yeah.
I'll let you go on.
Yeah. So first example of what I think could be a really potentially good product in India is a baby cycle. So it's been a long time since I've had little ones, so this was a completely new concept to me. But you've got a really healthy search volume there, 39,000, average sales of 100, and your average rating is only 3.8. So there's definitely some room to get in there and improve this. And your listing score is 3.3 on average for this product niche. So definitely some room to get in there and do something better. So you definitely want to use love hate and find out what the sellers that are currently in here with these poor ratings, what they're doing wrong and what you can do better.
I mean, having a search volume of did you say 38,000?
Yeah, that looks like 39,000.
That is per month. Just to clarify with everybody, that means there's 39,000 individual searches being made each month for the term baby cycle. That is, the quantity of buyers that are in the market for these products, it's mind-boggling.
Definitely. So again, yeah, so this, when I went to the Indian marketplace, it was 32,000. Your monthly sales around 100, but your income and your price point, I mean, the average price here is over 2,000, and we were looking at 500. So it's 4 times what is the recommended for these. So definitely something that you could get into. And what I think would be exciting about it is when you look at them, they all pretty much look the same. I mean, yeah, there's some color differences. Maybe some have a basket. But what I think would be really key is because like I said, they're focused on functionality. So they're not really too concerned about the aesthetics of it. So the function here that I think is being missed on most of these is a proper sunshade. And you can see these two have a sunshade, but it's not very big. I would look at doing something a little bit larger and making it better. And then also, I don't know if this is how they use these in India, but I know in Australia, when I go to the grocery store or the shops, I see women with prams, and they don't have a shopping trolley for their groceries. They're putting their groceries in the in the pram. And so, making some functionality here where, you could keep the child on the bike going into the shops, have room to store some things for yourself while they're on the bike, and a better sunshade, could be really unique in this marketplace.
Tom's just asked what contributes to ratings. So there's ratings, which means the number of reviews a product has had. So when you buy something on Amazon, you're given the opportunity between 1 and 5 stars to rate it. So how many of those have been made for a product, but then you've also got the rating, overall rating score itself. So maybe a seller's received 100 ratings, but on average, their star rating is 3 stars. So there's 2 metrics to look at there, because obviously if someone has a ton of ratings, but they're all 1 or 2 stars, that's a great opportunity to enter into. And I'd rather go against someone who's got 1,000 2-star reviews than someone who has 100 5-star reviews. So
exactly.
It's weighing that up. So hopefully that helps.
Yep. I think a lot of people get confused on the term ratings, because now they have changed it where they can just do the star rating without the review, and everyone's used to thinking of it as reviews. So yeah,
which can be frustrating for a seller when you get a low one and they don't give you a reason, because you don't know if it arrived broken, if there's something actually wrong with the product, or if they just you don't have that information to work from. So it can be a bit frustrating.
Definitely. All right, so looking at India for not so good examples was the thing that jumped out at me, and there were just too many of them to put in just a screenshot. So when I went to Niche Finder and was doing my initial search with my parameters for India, so many of the first things that came up were technology. So you see so many products that are technology based, with amazing niche scores, and you would think, oh, I can get in on this. But again, you've got so many things to combat with technology, and then also well-known brand names. Like fossil watches was a huge search term in India. So you could compete on a watch, but if you're going to be going up against a well-known brand that has a huge search volume, it's going to be really difficult. So those are things that you have to look at. It's, again, you don't just look at the numbers, you have to look at the product within the numbers and make sure that it's really going to work for you. So questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
I know we've had a few come through, and I think I've caught them all. If I haven't, just send it through again and we can definitely cover it. And this Q&A time, it can be about anything Amazon related. So it doesn't need to be about specific marketplaces. Any questions you have about the Amazon selling experience, we will help out where we can. So if you do have 100%. A question, yeah, feel free to send it through. It's so exciting, the different intricacies of each marketplace. I really like seeing that in it. It's especially in Australia, because I started selling in the US first. I think the opportunity for me being in Australia, it's huge. I've got that home ground advantage as well.
Definitely. And one thing that I didn't point out, but that I thought was really great too, was that for me, one thing that hesitates me going into Europe is the language barriers and the translations. But in India, it's still, everything on the marketplace was in English.
Yeah, which is not what I expected, but yeah, it's listed in English. The benefit, I guess, of Europe is you can have access to so many different markets. Like with that unified selling account, maybe you do enter into the UK, but because Europe's so connected, someone from Germany or France can purchase your product. Again, you really extend that list of customers out dramatically.
So it's a couple of questions. So there was a question about launching in multiple marketplaces simultaneously. Yeah, so you absolutely can, but it can be tricky. And it's going to be a bigger investment to get products into two marketplaces at the same time.
And if you're just starting out, I would recommend not doing that, because you'll probably find you're spreading yourself too thin. So just organizing shipping to two different locations. You might need two different 3PLs. There's different things that you're going to need to tackle in each marketplace. And if it's your first product, it's quite, there's a big learning curve there. I would say master it in one location first, and then you can quickly move it out to the second one. It won't be your first time through. You'll have that confidence and knowledge to be able to do it very easily.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely spreading yourself too thin. And I've heard people say, no, don't go into new marketplaces, just stay in one marketplace and add products. So, you can look at it two different ways. You can stay in one marketplace and just expand your product range, or you can, get a couple of good products and then look at other marketplaces and continue to grow from there. Every seller is going to be different on what they, and every product could be approached differently too. So it'll be different for each individual.
Yeah, definitely. Tom, you've raised a really good point. How easy is it for a US market leader to come to Australia? I would say it's fairly easy, but they're not really bothered. So those big players, those big hitters, they're competing on the front lines of the US marketplace. They're earning that big profit. At the moment, they're looking to Australia and going, you know what, it's not really worth my time. They're not playing that long game here because they're too busy competing in the US, which means that there's an opportunity to get into Australia, really set up your position, make it solid so that when it does get big enough for them to come here, you're already well established. You've already got that ranking. You've already got those reviews. It's something to keep in mind, but I'm not seeing many of them come across at the moment.
No, I'm not either. So I think that just opens Australia up for all of us to get in and get started. So
yeah.
Question: how do we look at profitability in FBA calculator by looking at the ASIN? Okay.
So if you're wanting to check the profitability of a product that's already selling on Amazon, I might need a bit of clarification there. So say you find a competitor on Amazon and you want to see how they're doing, Amazon actually has a calculator that you can plug in the ASN and it will give you costings, but you'll never know what they're paying for their goods. You'll never know what they're paying for shipping. So it's all going to be a bit of a guesstimate. We do work on the third approach, which means a third goes to your cost of goods, actually making the product. A third goes to Amazon for their fees, and a third should be your net profit in your pocket. So that's the ideal situation. So if you see something selling for $100, I would be guessing they're making profit between that $30 to $35 mark, roughly. Everyone's going to be different, and it changes dramatically on the category as well, but that's a good guide to start with.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I use the calculator tool, the ZonGuru calculator, the profit calculator.
I'll drop that link in. Yeah,
I use that, and I use the Seller Central also, because that tells you, for now really almost don't even need to, because the calculator now tells us what our selling fees are from Amazon. So you can use this even if you don't have the Seller Central account.
I'll just drop the link to that spreadsheet in the chat in case anyone wants to check it out.
Oh, and I'm so excited because now we have the spreadsheet. There's 4 of them now, aren't there?
Yeah, for each marketplace.
Yeah.
They're all in
yes.
there. Yeah.
So it's all specific for each marketplace.
Yeah. This is a great question. It's how much capital would you recommend someone to start with? And again, it's going to change dramatically depending on the person, what their comfort. Like maybe you've run businesses in the past. Maybe you've been an entrepreneur for some time. You have that capital behind you. You're willing to invest more. So versus somebody who, maybe you've just come out of high school and you're wanting to dip your toe into that space. So if you're going on the US, I'd say 10,000 is probably a good starting point. Whereas Australia, it's half that, even less sometimes. India can be as low as 1,000. UK is probably in the middle of Australia and the US. But it changes dramatically depending on your niche. It changes dramatically on your product. If you're going really high end, it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you more to make those goods. Maybe your packaging is premium, whatever it is, it's going to change. There are little things you can do to make life a bit easy. Maybe you do that craft paper packaging with a cute little sticker for the first couple of runs. And then when you've got that profit behind you, that's when you can invest in very expensive branding and packaging, or you don't need to go all in from the very beginning if you can't afford to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Donna has asked, when comparing niche scores between the US and Australia, I find you can find products with high niche scores in the US, but in AU it's low. Does that mean it's not a good product altogether in AU, or that it hasn't taken off yet? Would depend on the product, but I would say it's probably just not that it hasn't taken off yet, and that maybe it's just not something that's being offered very much. Maybe I've gone to some search pages, and whatever I'm searching for, like if I was looking, this is probably a bad example, but if I was looking for barbecue tongs, well, maybe the first 10 are barbecue tongs, but then they start putting in, barbecue spices and charcoal and other things in Australia, because they don't have the number of sellers selling barbecue tongs to even populate page 1. So you have to look at all of that together. You really have to take everything in and see, why is the niche score low?
Yeah. Have a look at the different components of the niche score. What is it that's pulling it down? Is it the demand? Is it the investment required? And maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you're okay with whatever it is on the low side, knowing that that's going to correct itself in time, or it works for your brand, whatever it might be. We have to remember that the US is basically, it's Amazon heartland. It's where it all started. They have so much history there. They're so much more advanced in terms of shoppers. That's their first point of call. Whereas in Australia, we're probably more inclined still to go to Google or another site, but that is changing, and it's changing dramatically. But we're just not at that stage yet of the US.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott's asked if you need EBC in Australia. So EBC, or A+ content, is when under a listing you may have seen extra images and copy, and It's more real estate on Amazon, essentially, to showcase your products. You don't need to have it in the US or Australia, but if you can get it, definitely do it. It's giving you that extra real estate, another place to really sell your product. And on a platform that you're selling through images, the more images you can put on a page, the more opportunity there is to get someone to click add to cart. And it's not hard. Yeah, all you need is a trademark. It's not a big hurdle.
And getting a trademark in Australia, because I've got a trademark in Australia and in the US. So easy. You don't even need an attorney. I mean, no, it's
no,
like,
yeah,
it's so easy. You go online and fill out some forms, give them your money, and it's not even that much money. And yeah, it's so simple to do here.
Yeah. It's just the waiting for it to be finalized. But other than that, it's all good. Well, and now Amazon will accept it while it's pending. Yeah. So,
but even Australia was much faster than in America. So
yeah,
I applied in America first, then applied in Australia, and had my Australian trademark long before I had it officially in America. So
yeah, cool. Wendy's asked if we're shipping, or if we've got an Australian seller account. Yes, I've got an Australian one, and a US one, and a UK one.
But I think she's asking, so products that can be shipped to Australia, does that mean you also have an Australian? So, okay.
I misread the question. Sorry.
Yeah, I only just opened my Australian seller account. So when you set up your listings in, or I can't remember if it was the listing or it was just your seller account, that you say, yes, you're happy for Amazon to ship your products to other marketplaces. And I cannot remember when I did that or where it was, but I know I did it at some point, setting everything up. And I think it was setting up my seller account. So then my product can ship to me in Australia, even though it's not in Australia. But I didn't have to have that seller account yet.
Yeah, awesome. Ram, so you've asked how existing sellers are selling products at such a low price. Is it something like sourcing price from China? So I'm not sure exactly which sellers you're talking about, but you will find there are people with crazy low prices. And, if they're buying en masse, so if they're a really top seller moving a lot of stock, then they usually get preferential sourcing costs. But it can be so many different things. You'll find that generally the niche kind of sets the price. Like, you don't really see a lot of outliers. You might see one or two, but it's not for long. Maybe they're clearing old stock, or it's a line that's not working for them. Generally, I'd say the niche sets the price, but those bigger sellers can access, quantity discounts that if you're just starting out, maybe you don't have access to. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kimberly?
No, I think that is, okay, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, I'm going to start turning things off. I'm not sure if maybe he's asking about the India pricing, because your pricing can be so much lower because you're sourcing in the same country that you're selling. So like Kimberly said, you don't have to worry about a massive freight forwarder and a container load going someplace else. It's just being sent from your manufacturer in India to your FBA warehouse in India. So that would save a huge amount.
So much. Just with duties and taxes, shipping, everything.
Oh gosh, I didn't even think about duties. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the niches are all going to vary too. Like some niches are just not going to be as expensive as others.
Danny, I really love your question. So she's asked, how can she start training her eye to see these opportunities and get creative with the differentiation? I think Pinterest, just Googling something, you will be so surprised with what you uncover. So if you find a product, a niche finder, or the Chrome extension that's delivering great numbers, just plug it into Pinterest and see what comes up. It can be something so generic. It might just be fish tank, and suddenly you have all these crazy ideas and different ways, and you can really get granular on what you're searching as well. So maybe you're looking at different ways to bundle or package. Just start Googling it. If you're out and about at the bricks and mortar shops, take a picture of something you love to see, and keep it in your phone. It looks like I've just lost Kimberly. Oh, she's back. Yeah, she's back. And it's fun. You'll start finding those products really quickly, and yeah, it's really fun.
I lost the chat history, but
okay.
Yeah, but no, on that point, I mean, there's a product that I still haven't developed yet, but I went on Amazon. There's like, maybe they all either look like this or like that, and then I went to Pinterest and I was like, yes, that's what I need to get made and get it onto Amazon. So yeah, Pinterest is like my best friend.
Yeah, there's so much inspiration there. Tom's just asked, is an Australian seller account enough to sell in another market? I would be opening a seller account in the market you're wanting to sell in. So it doesn't cost any more to hold multiple accounts. They'll cap it at the same price. So if you have a US and Australia, you're not paying two sets of fees. So, open it up in the marketplace you're wanting to sell in. It's going to unlock a lot more tools for you. You can group the logins. I forget the actual terminology. It's basically you select what marketplace you want from a drop-down menu. No harm.
And yeah, I recently just did this because they've made the change, and that was the whole reason I was holding out on Australia, because I wasn't ready to go into the marketplace yet, and I didn't want to pay two fees if I didn't have to. But now they've changed it, and they do cap it. But I will caution everyone to pay attention, because I set up my Australian account and I immediately got charged my first fee. And so I opened up a ticket and said, these are merged accounts. This is under the global selling platform, and they immediately refunded it back. So yeah. In fact, I don't think it actually ever came through on my credit card even. They told me they charged it and it hadn't gotten there yet.
That happened to me with the UK. I think it's like an automated message that just goes out. But yeah, I never got charged either. So, and Tom, you've got another great question. How easy is it for a manufacturer to add any differentiation features you want? It's easy. That's what they're there for. If you need to communicate them clearly, you need to give them all the information, but they're very open to working with you and making those changes where possible. My only advice would be very clear, concise and direct about what you're wanting. And if you're having any issues there, maybe look at getting a sourcing agent. So product I'm working on at the moment, I've always sourced my own products. This one was quite complex and I was having communication issues about how I wanted it. So I actually hired someone on the ground in China who was able to physically go into the factory and explain it. She's a native speaker, and it's just made that whole process a breeze. So if you do find that you're in that situation, it's not a big expense at all. It's and worth it.
Definitely. And I mean, when I'm sourcing initially, I've done it myself, and I've used a sourcing agent both, but I always start on Alibaba. And you can see, when you look on their profile, when you go into the product listing on Alibaba, you can see down towards the bottom, it'll have lots of different things, and it'll have a place where it talks about customization, and they have OEM and ODM, and I can't remember what those both stand for, but basically it both means that they'll do some form of customization. You just have to talk to them about what it is. And another tip too is, ask them, I go to their website and I look at all of their products, and then ask them, do you have anything new that you're working on developing? And they might have some ideas for how to customize your product themselves, because they're the manufacturer.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just been asked how the Chrome extension works, so I might share my screen really quickly.
Yeah, cool. It's my favorite tool.
I
like Keywords on Fire too, and I love Listing Optimizer. Yeah,
it's like choosing your favorite child.
You can't. I love them all.
Yeah. So I'm on Amazon.com at the moment. important thing to put in here is a USA postcode. That's really important. I've just typed in candle making supplies just because I really liked the other candle one that we had before. And you'll notice that I've got the ZonGuru tabs down the bottom here. So I simply click on this. My computer is going very slow because I am live and sharing a lot of screens at the moment. But in a few seconds, this will pre-fill with my rainbow search volume, sales, and it's listed all the products on that page down below here. So I can go through and see what revenue they're making, what they're ranked, what their ratings are, if they're an FBA seller, when their created date, and I've got options here to add them to the other ZonGuru tools. My computer really doesn't like me sharing while I'm live, so I'll give that a few minutes to run and I can open it back up once it's loaded.
One thing that I love about it is that you can sort it by, like, I'll immediately, once it all loads, I'll sort it by revenue. And so I have the top revenue at the top, and then I'll scroll down. And as I'm scrolling down, I'm looking at, and you could sort it by ratings as well. And so that was one of the things I was mentioning. I'll sort it by ratings, and I'll scroll down and see, maybe the average number of ratings is high because you got a few people that have a lot. But then I start looking at the sellers that have less than 500 ratings, and oftentimes I'll find the average ratings might be a little bit higher than I would normally want it to be. But when you actually look at it, you have more than half of the page has less than 500 ratings. So it's like, okay, and they're making sales. So it's like, okay, I can get in.
Just finished, so I'll let that. The niche score is really high on this one, 74%. Oh, wow. I just took a wild guess. So I've ordered this by revenue. So you can see that, and it's still loading. And to answer the question why some are gray, that means that it's an ad. Somebody's paid to be in that spot. So if they're not grayed out, it means they're organically ranking in that spot. So yeah, there's some big numbers being pulled through here, which is really interesting. But say I wanted to order it by ratings, you just click on the column that you want to sort that by. And you've also got the option over here as well to filter the results. So maybe I want to see those sellers who have, less than 800 ratings, but are making more than 5,000 a month. So, they're not as well established as some of the others. Let's see if it wants to perform while I'm live. So
I think you've got a new score there.
Yeah, it's working on it. I'm really testing my computer's limits, so I'm going to stop sharing again.
Well, one thing that I like too, when you open up those filters, there's another little tab there that says copy ASINs. And that is so cool because you can copy those ASINs and then take it directly to Keywords on Fire or any of the other tools where you can put competitor ASINs in and use those exact ones to search. So it speeds up the process so much.
Yeah, definitely. Nazrin's just asked, is Alibaba the only place to source suppliers? No, there's Wish Wholesale. They're actually based in San Francisco. They're fairly new to the scene, and they offer a different kind of approach where it's like a concierge service. You go to them, you tell them what they want, and then they'll find the manufacturers for you. If you're going into India, there's the India Wholesale Network. I'd recommend checking them out. Alibaba is definitely the most popular and most well-known, but there are other ones out there.
And I have used 1688 in the past, but you have to have the Google Translate extension because it's all in Chinese. But 1688 is kind of like the it's where the Chinese sellers go to look. So a lot of times you'll find lower prices, but yeah, it is a little bit trickier. But I also like to go to some of the other places to source after I've looked on Alibaba, because if you're seeing the same thing on Alibaba a lot, then you want to find something that's different so you can stand out.
Yeah, for sure. Donna's asked, would we recommend using manufacturers only rather than a trading company? I think you mean there, so you can deal direct with the manufacturer, the person making the product. Sometimes you can deal with that intermediary, the person who is sourcing it from the manufacturer. So there's an extra layer in there. There's pros and cons for both. Personally, I prefer to go straight to the manufacturer. But I have dealt with that supplier in the middle before when I've purchased products straight off the shelf. So both have their pros and cons.
Well, and I've actually encountered a few, and this is going through Alibaba, when I click on the product, and they're actually a manufacturer and a trading company. So they might manufacture some things, but then they might source, maybe complementary items that they don't actually manufacture. So they could do both.
Yeah, nice. Kerry, that's a great question. And I like it because Kimberly and I came from very different backgrounds. So I didn't go through Reliable. I actually had a product before Amazon. So I didn't create a product for Amazon. I just created a product and by accident ended up on Amazon. So I really went the hard road, whereas Kimberly went through Reliable. So you've kind of got both options here.
And I'm still learning. I mean, I never stop learning.
Yeah.
No. And the number of blogs, the number of tabs I have open of blogs I need to read, it's just, yeah.
And I think that's the key. As long as you keep learning, and there's content everywhere. You've got to find Reliable is brilliant because it lays it out for you so clearly. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't end there. You're constantly consuming new information. Amazon changes all the time. Keep learning.
Yeah. And then again, the training that that ZonGuru is really focused on finding those products, and so they work so well together.
If Reliable education is out of your budget, start with Adam's book. So Adam is behind Reliable. He wrote a fantastic book, and it's a great way to get a taste of what's in the course. And yeah, it's a book, so it's in everybody's price range, and it's a nice starter into that journey.
Definitely.
It's called Primed, so check it out. So Rams asks, FBM, when you ship a product, can we get Amazon tape to seal the product? So yeah, so this is asking, when you ship the product yourself, how can you make it have that Amazon feel, like the box, the tape, the logo, anything like that? To my knowledge, I don't think you can. But from the customer's perspective, I think if it's delivered in quality packaging, I don't think it's a big issue for them. If it's delivered timely, in one piece, in a great quality, I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, I personally have never been concerned about the outer packaging. Sometimes I get surprised with the packaging that the product's actually in. And sometimes I look at it and go like, that's really all they did? So,
yeah, it depends. They really weren't trying here, were they? Yeah. That's such a great way to summarize the book, Danny, the Reader's Digest version of the course. Yeah, I like it.
And I think it's available on Kindle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it's an audiobook.
I got the Kindle version, but yeah, I have heard there's an audiobook. The problem with having it on a Kindle or the audiobook is I felt like I wanted to underline a lot and tab pages, which is not as easy to do. So
I'm old school like that too when I'm studying.
Yeah, I found it annoying on an electronic version it's just nice to open up a page and have it there. Yeah. Well, I think we've set a new record for live training. I think that's a new one. But next week we have a special session. So for our regulars, we do have live training every week like this, different topics each time. Next week, we actually have a partner webinar. So every now and again, we'll join with some other great Amazon sellers or providers. We've got Seller Candy and Evolve Media, and it's all about how to get ready for Q4, because in the Amazon world, Q4, that's big bucks. You can make more in that quarter than you can throughout the rest of the year, depending on your category. So it's making sure that you're really set up for that time. Even if you're not selling yet, you'll find great information in there, because when you do launch, you're going to want to know this. So yeah, very love to see you there. Let me see. I think that's it. It's been great talking to everybody.
Yeah, it's great seeing. I see a few familiar people in the chat too. So thanks everybody, and I hope you got something good out of this.
Awesome. Take care. I'll speak to you all soon.